right. Hey there, students. Tom Richey here, and we are getting started with our night before Euro final review. All right. So we're going to actually not final review because remember, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be back tomorrow morning. A few things that we need to know about, just announcements, kind of like we're starting school, right? So let's make sure that we know that tonight's session is not the last broadcast. The AP Euro exam is at noon, so therefore I think it would be kind of nice for us to have breakfast together, okay? So a few things that we want y'all to be aware of, okay? A few things we want y'all to be aware of is that, first of all, breakfast with Richie is tomorrow morning, Monday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, okay? So breakfast with Richie, that's happening on my YouTube channel there, or if you're in Crowdcast, we're going to go ahead and have that there as well. So if you've been coming on Crowdcast, great. If you want to join on YouTube, great. So this is starting at 9 a.m. That's going to be tomorrow morning, okay? So that's going to be tomorrow morning at 9 about, and almost, wow, that exam is coming up, isn't it? So with that, ladies and gentlemen, as well, we see that there are some premium sessions tonight. Now, at 9:30, I'm going to be doing a premium art review, okay? So that's going to be going on at 9:30. You would go to crowdcast.com/Tom Richey or crowdcast.io/Tom Richey. If you're on YouTube, that is available there. Now, just to note here that if you sign up for the premium session, basically yesterday we did an LEQ workshop, which lasted for about an hour and a half. We did a multiple choice strategy session, also more than an hour. So if you, let me actually put the price down as well. Let me see what the price is right now. And I think I can go ahead and make a little adjustment there. Okay. So since we've had another session, I'm going to run in here, and instead of the $20 ticket price, we're going to go ahead and say that that is a $15 ticket. Now, you not only get access to, so I'm going to go ahead and change that price because we've already had most of our broadcasts there. So that should be there now, but you've got the Art of Euro. We're going to have a full art review, okay? So full art review at 9:30 tonight. That's going to happen. That's a premium session, $15 ticket. It also gets you the footage from yesterday's sessions that went on for about 60 to 90 minutes, both of them, on multiple choice and on the LEQ. Okay, so as far as that goes, that again tomorrow, free public broadcast on my YouTube channel at 9 a.m. So with that, now, Liam, those of you on the West Coast, don't wake up at 6 a.m. on exam day. You can watch the archive, or you can just join us when you wake up. All right, so let's take a look here at the Crowdcast. So basically YouTube, I'm going to be coming in. I'm going to be saying, hey, once in a while. Now, those of you in YouTube, we want to note that on the YouTube chat, it's pinned, okay? If you want to go to the Art of Euro at 9:30 tonight, it is the pinned chat, okay? So that's going to be over there. That's the pinned chat, and you can join us there. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and let's get this party started. So I see something that somebody is wanting to ask me. Oh, Lynn, I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming, okay? So can we compare the old imperialism and the new imperialism, okay? And let me just see if I've got something here. Old and new imperialism. Let's see, old and new. Okay, so comparison, age of exploration and the new imperialism. Okay, now I'm not going to share this this Google Drive link until I'm done with it. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I will share the Google Drive link when I'm done. Okay, so but for right now, let me just go ahead and put that on my screen. Lynn, if you want access to this later, I'm totally fine with that. So when we think about the age of exploration imperialism, now when I'm thinking about like the comparison focused LEQ questions, okay? So if we consider this is a prompt from the 2018 AP Euro exam that said evaluate the extent to which Europe's interactions with its overseas colonies in the period 1500 to 1650, as far as that goes, differed from its interactions with its overseas colonies in the period 1815 to 1914. So if this was an LEQ, and basically what it was looking at the age of exploration imperialism, right? 1500 and 1650, and then 1815 to 1914 getting into the new imperialism. So when we're thinking about that, the age of exploration, it's exploring the new world, right? If we think about the Americas and the Columbian Exchange, all of these things here that they're seeking gold and precious metals, luxury goods, right? So precious metals, if I were to kind of refine this a little bit, precious metals and luxury goods, okay? Now, spices, silks, and sugar, okay? Spices, silks, and sugar. Okay, so as far as that, when we think about spices, silks, and sugar, these are things that are going to be, they're going to be, very uncommon in Europe, at the beginning of the age of exploration. But because of the age of exploration, they are going to be pretty much plentiful. We could say that, sugar is, sugar is something like, today probably, too cheap and too plentiful. We're having health problems because of it. But before the age of exploration, these luxury goods were extremely expensive and extremely rare. We can associate mercantilism, the conquistadors, conversion to Christianity as a primary goal. Now, if I were writing this essay, one of the things I would note here, I would probably do some in-text context. Now, 9 times out of 10, I think the best context is the previously on context, where basically we pick something relevant from the period immediately before the prompt and we go. Now, those comparison-focused LEQs, where they take, this part and this part, the best place to draw from is going to be something from the middle that changed things. So think about this, 1650 to 1815. So if we think about the industrial revolutions, that's something that we could bring in the historical context in the middle. Remember, even though we generally recommend to put contextualization at the beginning of your essay, it's a good, you can put it anywhere. So especially if you're doing like, something like this, where you've got that, that comparison style LEQ that is in front, got some stuff in between it. So Africa and Asia, okay? Now, this is something that's a big deal, as we were talking about in the multiple choice strategy session last night, that, that they want Europeans in the late 19th, early 20th century, they're looking for sources of raw materials. They're supporting their expanding manufacturing economies, which were really not an issue over here, okay? That Europe did not really have, the Industrial Revolution hadn't happened yet, okay? Because we're really getting into the, about 1760s. That's when we start to see the first Industrial Revolution. And then we could talk about Darwinism and social Darwinism. Kipling's White Man's Burden as a piece of specific evidence. So, then if we're thinking about what did both of these eras of imperialism have in common, this idea of European cultural superiority, okay, and the idea that it's necessary to civilize other cultures outside of Europe. Europeans used superior technology to conquer native peoples. They expected others to adopt their culture and beliefs. And of course, both of these expanded global trade. They increased economic growth pretty much across the world, and interdependence. When we think about that, the globe, that trade, increasing globalization, all of that. And so as far as that, this is a sample LEQ here where we could, again, I forget if this was something that a that a student wrote or something like that, or that I wrote. Let me go ahead and just take a quick look at that and see exactly what this actually, yeah, it looks like this is something that, I let some people view way back. Oh, okay, I see. I must have done, yeah, I don't know exactly what I'm doing here. But let's go ahead, and since I'm finished with it, because it causes some chaos if too many people are pulling up a Google document. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in, YouTube and the Crowdcast. So, imperialism, LEQ notes, and that is from the 2018 exam. So I'm just going to go ahead and share that, and y'all can take a look at that at your leisure. But I just wasn't going to share that while I had it up actively. So let me go ahead and let's see what's going on the, yeah. So the, let's see on YouTube. I'm going to go ahead and get that out to you. So y'all go ahead and note that I have shared that. And thank you, Lynn, for starting us off with a wonderful question. Okay. Actually, it looks like I already answered this question. If you're watching this later and you want to skip to that, just go back. Sorry, I should have had that up while I was answering the question, but there we go. So as far as that goes, now, let's see, Naomi, you have got a very popular question on Lenin and Stalin, okay? So let me go ahead and get this. Now, remember, I'm going to be doing TikTok and Instagram shout-outs tonight for new TikTok and Instagram followers, at Tom Richey on both platforms, okay? At Tom Richey on Instagram, at Tom Richey on TikTok. I'm going to be doing a lot of shout-outs there. So y'all just make sure. Also on Instagram, I posted a picture of Harambe, and I've heard that double tapping a picture of Harambe is likely to up your AP score by 2 points. So maybe it's true, maybe it's not. It's just something I've heard. And so I've got a picture of Harambe on my Instagram posted very recently. So go ahead and take a little look there. And if you're wanting to do well in your AP exam, just double tap on that thing, maybe share it with a friend, let them know as well. So as far as that goes, 1848 Lupa on YouTube. You might want to take a look at my lectures on the revolutions of 1848. So with that, let me go ahead and see what I've got on Lenin and Stalin, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and let's see. I've got some Russian Revolution notes, okay? So I've got some things on Google Drive that I'm going to go ahead and just kind of share with y'all, okay? So with that, and again, once I'm done with this, then I will, I'll share it with y'all, okay? But let's just kind of go through the Russian. Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. Naomi, we're going to have to kind of like pick one, right? Which we can, you know what? Let's go camp out in Russia for a little bit, okay? Kind of like Napoleon. Now, as far as that on TikTok, there's a new Napoleon rap that I've got that I've been trying to get it ready for TikTok. It'll probably be late tonight when I get it up there, but y'all are going to want to see this, okay? Y'all are going to want to see this. So with that, let's go ahead and talk about the Russian Revolution, what's leading to that, late Tsarist Russia, kind of setting up contextualization, okay? So as far as the Russian Revolution, Russia is kind of on the outskirts of Europe. If we're going back to 1850, Central and Western Europe are industrialized or rapidly industrializing. They're urbanized. A lot more people are living in cities. You see less people living in rural areas. And there are viable institutions of representative government. Even in the German Empire, like with the Kaisers and all that, there were, now the Kaiser was very strong. It wasn't like these representative bodies were running the show, but there was a house of the legislature in the German Empire where the people were elected, where the representatives were elected by universal male suffrage. So even Germany, increasingly urbanized, increasingly industrialized, institutions of representative government. Russia was only beginning to industrialize, still very heavily rural, and even serfdom was still around until the 1860s. An autocracy. No legislature, no semblance of a legislature, no legislature that didn't even have real power, just nothing, okay? They were an autocracy. And so with that, Russia, somebody mentioned the revolutions of 1848. which Russia didn't have one. By the way, I've got a great lecture series on the revolutions of 1848. I can tell you all you need to know and more. So it's a 5-part series. The first part's probably the most important. But one of the things that we'll note is Russia did not have a revolution of 1848, and that was because people knew better. Okay, that wasn't going to be pretty if the Russians, if people tried to revolt against the Tsar. So there was more repressive government. There was less urbanization. Really, the revolutions of 1848, to a certain extent, required a degree of urbanization. Okay, so that's something that we want to be, we want to be very cognizant of there. Now, let me see. I've got headset in there. All right, so everybody heard me, right? When I was on the, okay. So as far as that goes, when we're looking at socialist movements in late 19th century Europe, sometimes this comes up, okay? So again, we're going to kind of camp out here because I think we had a really good question. It was popular, and this gets passed over in a lot of classrooms, including my own to some extent, that Marxism is a variety of socialism. Now, yesterday, last night's review on industry and isms, which y'all can still access on either YouTube or Crowdcast, it's on my YouTube channel. You can go on Crowdcast and find it. But Marxism and anarchism were both socialist movements whose goal was to overthrow the state. Now, you even had those early utopian socialist movements that really weren't trying to overthrow the state, but both Marxism and anarchism wanted to overthrow the state through a violent revolution. Now, the thing is, though, that Marxists wanted to overthrow the existing state and replace it with a new centralized communist state, whereas anarchists, they wanted to abolish the state and replace it with a system of voluntary cooperation. Okay, that's what they wanted. Now, violent revolution, again, Marxism, because they're looking to set up a new communist state, Marx believed that a large-scale insurrection was going to be led by the urban masses. He believed that they would independently have, basically develop a class consciousness. Now, Lenin breaks with him on that. And then anarchist, isolated acts of terror orchestrated by small groups of revolutionaries. Now, both of them also shared opposition to reformist liberalism, okay, because these are revolutionary movements. Liberals preferred to take the existing system of government and reform it, whereas the Marxists and the anarchists, they opposed this, and they were very anti-liberal. And so what we see here, that anarchism in the late 19th century, anarchism was arguably more popular in Russia, even though the Bolsheviks, who were Marxists, ended up taking over the Russian Revolution. Now, Alexander II. You don't have to, necessarily know all these names, but we want to know that there were some efforts in the late 19th century to liberalize in Russia without necessarily, giving up too much of the Tsar's power, right? So he emancipated the serfs. He began planning the Trans-Siberian Railroad, which was largely built under his son, Alexander III. But basically, Alexander II was someone who was he was even thinking about, maybe it's about time we have some kind of representative body. Now, we don't know exactly what he was planning because he was assassinated by terrorists in 1881. So this was the kind of thing that anarchists would do, that they would do things like assassinate the Tsar. They wanted to bring the government down by isolated acts of assassination and terror. So basically, this stops any kind of political liberalism in its tracks, okay? Alexander III is kind of, regressive when it comes to political liberalism, but we do see that, there is industrialization and construction of railroads. Now, Russia is still way behind on the industrialization, okay? So as far, oh yeah, and I've got that. How'd y'all like that Bismarck rap last night? Did y'all like that? All right, and y'all, a lot of y'all are taking A-Push. Know that I'm here for you next year in A-Push, ladies and gentlemen. Some of y'all may be new to the party, and I'll have some new A-Push stuff coming out very soon. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at World War I. I think this is something
It's one of those. It's one of those charts that I think that everybody taking the AP Euro exam should look at and consider at least once. Okay, so when we're thinking about the causes of World War One, I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, the HMS Dreadnought. I mean, probably like, I mean, this was a game changer, ladies and gentlemen. If you can find some way to work the Dreadnought in somewhere, I tell you, the Dreadnought race, you know, the Anglo-German arms race, all started by one boat, okay, the HMS Dreadnought, okay. And so with that, you know, when we look at 1870, here's Russia. Now, this is the percentage distribution of the world's manufacturing production. Now, you've got Russia is at 3.7%. France is a good bit more industrialized than Russia. Now, one thing to note here is that Britain was, in 1870, the most industrialized country by far. Now, Britain industrialized very quickly. They didn't have, the government only really supported industrialization by friendly legislation. Like, you know, the government did, you know, it was something like, you know, when you think you keep taxes low, you protect intellectual property, you make sure that there's, you know, not a lot of regulations. So the government, you know, basically through pro-business policies, you know, helped, but kind of passively helped. So in the UK, industrialization happens very quickly in Britain, and Britain becomes, you know, is at the front of the line. Now, France is just not in too much of a hurry. France slowly industrializes throughout the 19th century, and France remains, you know, like pretty much by the time we get to 1870, France is only about a third of the industrial output of Britain. And then, of course, Germany. Germany was late to the party, but they started industrializing quickly with a lot of heavy government support. And so Bismarck was a big, big fan of industrializing and did everything he could for Germany to keep going. Now, see, Russia is very much behind there. But one thing we can note is that by 1913, the eve of World War One, Germany was, you know, was at 15%, you know, 15% of industrial output. Now, notice that the United States is producing more, as much industrial output as Germany, the UK, and France combined. Now, that kind of explains why, you know, when we think about, you know, historians will debate the extent to how much the U.S. entry into World War One broke a stalemate. Well, this is going to make a difference. I mean, the U.S. had the industrial output of these three countries combined. But one thing we'll note is that Russia is industrializing. And, you know, when you see this, they're making progress. At the beginning of World War One, Russia has almost the industrial output as France. Now, of course, Russia is also a larger country than France, but they made progress. Still not enough, right? So on the eve of World War One, Russia is still, you know, very rural and very much behind on things. And so the Russo-Japanese War, this is a war in 1904, 1905, very important in the sense of understanding what happens with Japan. Japan saw what was happening with China, the way that China's being parceled up and everybody's going in there and taking their spheres of influence. Japan decided that they were going to industrialize. And so 1904, 1905, the Russo-Japanese War, now 100 victories, 100 laughs. Okay. Now this is a great thing here. Yeah, 100 victories, 100 laughs. This is something. Let's see, Japan. Let me note here, Japan. Okay. So, I mean, you can see here that there are, yeah, long live Japan, 100 victories, 100 laps. And there's one, or 100 laps. Now, there's one where the Russians, like, it's a great one. Let's see, 100 victories. One, I'm not able to find the one I'm looking for. Let's see, whale, fish, Russians. All right, so let me see. Okay, yeah, Library of Congress here. So a whale and 3 fish. Oh my goodness, what? All right, let's see if that. Let's see what happens here. Okay, nope. I tell you what. We want to, let's see if we can oh gosh, unknown error. Come on, Library of Congress. What's going on there? So we want to, let's see if we can, nope. All right. Well, anyway, if it was really worth looking at. And actually, let's see if we just go, yeah. So here's something that we can see here is that the Japanese, this is like Japanese art during the war. I mean, Japan like just really like clobbers Russia in this war. And the Russo-Japanese War is the first time where a non-Western power defeats a Western power. So the joke here, if you get, so the joke here is that there are so many Russian sailors that are drowning in the ocean because Japan has clobbered them, that the whale and three fish are sitting there and they're just having dinner on those Russian sailors. Ha, ha, ha. I mean, but Japanese here, I think it's kind of funny. I think it's kind of funny. It's some dark humor. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, considering that, going from here, the Russian Revolution of 1905 is basically the first time, the Russo-Japanese War, the Russian defeat, and a lot of people are upset. And Nicholas II begins he says, okay, we're going to have a Duma, a representative body, right? A representative body. Now, Russia enters World War I. Some more stuff happens, okay? We have the February Revolution and the October Revolution. The February Revolution is when Tsar Nicholas II steps down. He abdicates. And Russia briefly becomes a constitutional republic. Now, problem is, for Russia, the provisional government in Russia is trying to keep fighting World War I, but at the same time, you've got the Bolsheviks who are actively trying to bring down the government. So, they're, trying to be a government, but also trying to fight World War I. Well, as far as that goes, the provisional government falls in October of 1917, and Lenin's government negotiates a peace agreement with Germany, gives up a lot of land in order to do that. And so basically gets out of the war. Okay. So that's something. Let me just pause for just a second here. I'm going to, see what's going on in the chat and all of that good stuff. And, as far as that goes, we'll go ahead and, and get that. Oh, Lauren is ready for a little bit of rapping. So as far as that goes, you know what? Let's just do a quick Bismarck rap. Okay, we're gonna do a quick Bismarck rap. If y'all want to hear it, I don't know. Some of y'all probably didn't come to hear me. If y'all didn't come to hear me rap, y'all just let me know. I don't have to do that. And this one is on my SoundCloud. It's also on my YouTube channel. So as far as that goes, we're going to go ahead and let's just go ahead and do a little Warm Water Records. Let me check the YouTube chat. Do they want me to rap, or are they saying we didn't come here to see you rap? So let's just see what's going on over there. Yep, there we go. I don't know. Well, I'm gonna rap anyway, okay? Because the people in the Crowdcast here, it looks like y'all are wanting a little rap. I'm gonna send the drive thing when I'm done with this one, okay? So I'm gonna go back to it, and we're gonna look at Lenin and Stalin and all of that. So let me go ahead and get Bismarck rap going. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's see. Here we go. First rap of the night. Warm Water Records, ladies and gentlemen. Looks like there's some German states out there that need to be unified. Blood and iron, more like blood and bars. All right. I'm the Iron Chancellor, and I feel an obligation. Unify the German states under Prussian domination. A conservative at heart, but I've got a little trick. It's the politics of power. Call it real politics. An alliance with the liberals because I'm industry emphatic and they're secular. They like my culture cop against the Catholics and the Social Democrats because I'm gonna put it bluntly that Germany will never be a socialist country. I've got old age pensions and some accident insurance. If you're hurt at work, I've got your back. You've got my reassurance. Call it state socialism. Now the liberals want to hate, but without the working classes, we can't unify the state. The position of Prussia in Germany at this hour will not be determined by its liberalism, but its power. Great questions aren't decided by speeches or majorities. It's blood and iron. I'll use war to spread authority. With the Austrians as allies, we took Schleswig and Holstein. They declared war on Austria. The next step in my Grandiza. Prussia won in 7 weeks. Austria wasn't any match. Then it's time to provoke France with the M's dispatch. Moltke led a modern army, armed with telegraphs and trains. France decisively defeated, gave up Alsace and Lorraine. After unifying Germany, then I really had some clout. Now it's 1890 and I'm out. All right, so Bismarck. Now, one thing that to note there on that rap is where I'm talking about, like, the position of Prussia in Germany at this hour will not be determined by its liberalism, but its power. That's something there that that's actually almost a direct quote. Okay, that's almost a direct quote from Bismarck. Looks like the Crowdcast chat kind of like slowed down. Is everything okay? I need to make sure everything's okay in the stream and all of that kind of stuff. Okay, all right. I think we're okay. I think it's catching up. It's catching up. All right. So, bruh. Okay, so yeah, it's the Crowdcast chat is catching up. So we're all good there. So Bismarck, one thing to think about is Germany in the revolutions of 1848. They tried to unify on the basis of liberalism and nationalism. They wanted a liberal nationalist unification. Bismarck said, no, okay, blood and iron, okay? And so again, like I said, where I said the position of Prussia in Germany at this hour will not be determined by its liberalism, but its power. Great questions aren't decided by speeches or majorities. It's blood and iron. I use war to spread authority. That's almost a direct quote from his speech. So if you have that going through your head, that's something that you've got that. So thank y'all, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to get back to, looking at the Russian Revolution. Now, TikTok at Tom Richey. Let's see here as far as, who are our new followers on the TikToks. Hunter B. period 19, Kim, Chris, Kenny, Kate, Morgan, Eva, Lilith, Sue Hay, Rachel, Hale, EJ, High C Edits, Sydney 39. Okay, Dr. James Wilson. Dr. James Wilson, that sounds like a teacher. That's probably a teacher. So we're going to follow Dr. James Wilson back. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we got some folks over here. All right, Teresa and Millie and Mara. Okay, great to see everybody here, ladies and gentlemen. And you know what? I should probably go on a little TikTok. I'm going to put on the TikTok live for just a second too, just to make sure they know that we're here. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go back. And remember, 9:30, we've got the premium session. We've got the premium session at 9:30, crowdcast.io/Tom Richey. And if you join us there, it's going to be an art review. And then the art reviews happen at 9:30. You also get 2 archived sessions from yesterday, which focus on the LEQ and multiple choice strategy. Okay, so that's something there that y'all want to keep in mind. Now, going from that, let's go back to our discussion of the Russian Revolution. So with that, we want to understand that Marx and Lenin. Now, Marx and Lenin both agreed that history is based on class struggle. Okay, so the prevailing capitalist order represents the last stage in the class struggle. That we will see the end of history, and that's going to be it. The capitalist order will be overthrown by the working class in a violent revolution, establishing a communist society that will get rid of all class distinctions, ending the class struggle that is going on throughout history. So now this is where we see that it's going to change, because Marx said in order for a country to have a communist revolution, they have to first have a bourgeois revolution, kind of like the French Revolution, or what's going on in Britain or Germany. And so it would have to be fully organized. Everything would have to come from there, right? And so then this is going to happen naturally. The working class will independently establish a class consciousness. So that's something that we see there. They don't need help from bourgeois people or something like that. So the ideal setting would be Britain or maybe Germany, these countries that were industrialized and urbanized. Now, Lenin, knowing that Marx's ideas basically said, Russia, no, it's too early. You're going to have to be patient. You still haven't had a bourgeois revolution yet, okay? And so then when we're looking at Lenin, a communist revolution could happen in a nation. that had never experienced a proper bourgeois revolution and had not yet fully industrialized or urbanized. And Lenin also says the working class, they're not going to independently develop a sense of class consciousness. Somebody's going to have to help them figure out exactly how screwed they are, okay? And so a revolutionary vanguard, professional revolutionaries like Lenin and Stalin and Trotsky, they're going to have to help the working class develop a sense of class consciousness. And this could possibly include Russia, okay? So what we often refer to here is Marxism-Leninism, okay? So when you hear people talk about communism in the Soviet Union, they wouldn't just call it Marxism, they'd call it Marxism-Leninism. And so as far as that goes, we also want to know that just like Bismarck had shown a lot of, like, he was very mobile, right? Bismarck was very mobile, to where basically Bismarck did not like socialism, but then Bismarck, designed the first welfare state in Europe, old age pensions, accident insurance, okay? These things are happening there. And so Bismarck is setting up the first welfare state. Now, remember, when we say a welfare state, what we're saying is a state where there are safeguards for people who are, they're poor or they're elderly or they got injured at work and they can't, they've got a disability and that sort of thing, making sure that those people aren't going to be thrown out on the street. That's a welfare state. So Bismarck didn't like socialism, so he brought in what the liberals derisively call state socialism, okay? So this is something where Bismarck is willing to put his hand in the socialism jar and get a couple cookies out of there to stop the whole jar from becoming socialist. And so with that, Lenin, with the NEP, okay, at first, Lenin tried to do a straight up what they're called war communism. And some of that, I don't have a fascism rap, Robert, on the TikToks. Now, those of you on the TikToks, make sure y'all understand I'm also on YouTube. So I'm just streaming here for a little bit to let y'all know I'm here. And so with that, war communism, take over all industries and complete abolition of private enterprise, it was a disaster. It was a complete disaster. Camellia, hello. Camellia, hello. Just make sure that when this is over, y'all come join me on YouTube, right? So then when he sees that war communism is not working, he adopts the new economic policy, which says that, major industries, major factories and stuff like that, stay hydrated, kids. So banks, railroads, major industries, factories, those will be government owned, okay? Those will be subject to communist government control. But at the same time, petty capitalism. Petty capitalism. So with that, we're talking about petty capitalism. Now, speaking of petty capitalism, ladies and gentlemen, on the YouTube, you can see that I've posted something. There will be a premium review session, okay? There will be a premium review session. Just go to crowdcast.io/Tom Richey at 9:30. I'm going to be doing an art review, okay? An art review, full art review. It's going to last about an hour and a half, okay? And then you get also 2 previous reviews on the LEQ and the multiple choice strategy session. Now, this is an example of petty capitalism, okay? Because when I talk about petty capitalism, I'm not making a whole lot of money. I'm a teacher that's got like a little bit of side hustle, right? So that's an example of petty capitalism. I don't own a bank. Like if I own a bank, I'd be here. If I own the railroad, I wouldn't be, I wouldn't be here, right? I just, maybe I would be here. Maybe I'd just be doing this for fun because I'm having fun, right? Are we all having fun? Y'all make sure y'all let us know in the chat if you're having fun. So Lenin launches the new economic policy. And basically, if you're a petty capitalist, you've just got a family business or something like that, there you go, okay? So the NEP is not Lenin converting to capitalism any more than Bismarck's state socialism was Bismarck converting to socialism. But basically, Bismarck, Lenin, he says, look, Russia's just not ready to be communist yet, is what he comes to the conclusion. Now, as far as that goes, people on TikTok, y'all go ahead and, y'all can join me. Let your friends know Tom Richey is on YouTube, youtube.com/Tom Richey. Okay, so go ahead and come over to YouTube and join us. And we're going to be reviewing for AP Euro. I might come back a little bit later. All right, so there we go, ladies and gentlemen. And how do I end that stream? We're going to go ahead and end now. All right, so we'll go ahead and end that stream. And there we go. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and find my Stalinism bit, and then we're going to go ahead and let's see. So I've got Stalinism. Let's go ahead and open that up, and I'm going to put that in there. Now, make sure, ladies and gentlemen, let's see. I'm going to run into Instagram. We're going to, we got a lot of new followers on Instagram. Okay, so I'm going to get that set up there. And I also need to make sure to paste this Stalinism thing in this document that I'm about to share with you. Okay, so I want to make sure that we've got that. And so we're going to, let's see, I'm going to go back over there, and I want to make sure that y'all have everything that I've got, okay? So thank you, Sue Hay Lopez, let's see, Evan Woe Byan, Samuel Dickey, and Evan underscore BR11, Tiernan Jenkins, Ali Widgman, Adib Khan 201 with an underscore there, Lucas Robinson, Lucas Roheen 09, Nicolette, thank you very much, Mara, and then we've got Juliet, and mentally in the 50s. Okay, mentally in the 50s. I tell you what, I hope that's between 50 and 55. Is that where you are? You're locked in. You're going to get 50 to 55 correct on the multiple choice. So get mentally in those 50s. Abby B 141. Thank you. So, Lynn, is that Lynn? Is that the Lin, ladies and gentlemen? I don't know. I tell you what, I think that might be the Lin. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, Lin underscore squared. Not sweared. That would be a lot of funny. So, TS True FR. Okay. So, John E. liked that photo of Harambe. And again, this is one of those things. It's been rumored to bring up your AP score by 2 points if you like a picture of Harambe. All right. RIP. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and get back into it. So, let me go ahead and share my screen again here. And let's see that, we're going to go ahead and look at Stalinism, okay? And again, once I'm finished with this document, I'm glad to share it with y'all, okay? So thank y'all very much for being here, okay? So with that, and again, we'll be doing occasional, shout outs on Instagram and not Snapchat, but Instagram and what's the TikToks, yeah. So Stalinism. So Stalin takes over after Lenin and is leading the Soviet Union from 1924 to 1953. So what is Stalinism? So as far as that goes, one key ingredient of Stalinism is socialism in one country, okay? So one of the things, if we look at socialist, like communist theory, okay? If we're thinking about communist theory, that basically communism needs to spread around the world. Remember that communism is not nationalistic, okay? But Stalin, I think partly so that the Soviet Union could get international recognition, he abandoned the idea of a worldwide communist revolution, and he said, let's focus on socialism in one country. And that's basically, let's work on strengthening communism within the Soviet Union. And he renounces the policy that had been under Lenin, that we're advocating a worldwide communist revolution, socialism in one country. Now, also, Stalin says that, look, he looks over to the West and he says, we've got to, in a way, kind of like Not So Different Peter the Great, state-supported industrialization in Russia through the implementation of 5-year plans. Now, note, the initial 5-year plan, I think, was a success, but the longer this went on, the less successful they were, because planned economies, if you're way behind and you're just copying what other people have done and you're directing it, it can go a certain length, right? But after a while, the lack of innovation and the lack of economic freedom is going to work against you. Collectivization of agriculture. Basically, he forced the peasants. Now, when we talk about peasants, remember that peasants are not just like the just poor medieval landless farmers. When I say peasants, these are people who they farmed for a living. So there were a lot of peasants in the Soviet Union who owned land, landowning peasants. Now, Stalin referred to them as kulaks, okay? These peasants who were concentrated in, where's today Ukraine, he's calling them kulaks, which means tight-fisted. Basically, he creates this narrative saying that these landowning farmers, they are the enemy. These capitalists, these professional farmers, they are tight-fisted. And so the kulaks were eliminated by a combination of forced starvation and the gulag. A cult of personality. Now, this is central to totalitarianism. Remember, when we say totalitarianism, what we're saying is we're describing communism and fascism and Nazism and talking about their common traits. Okay, so one of the things we see in Stalinist Russia, fascist Italy, Nazi Germany, is a cult of personality. And this means that the leader, just like in Nazi Germany, people would greet each other with Heil Hitler in order to show their loyalty to the leader. So Stalin basically creates a cult of personality around both himself and Lenin. Now, this is one thing that's very interesting. Lenin never gave any clear directive for Stalin to succeed him as leader. Stalin kind of maneuvered into that position. And so basically, when Stalin renamed St. Petersburg Leningrad, and erected statues of Lenin all over the place, and then named, Volgograd, I think it's Volgograd, but named it Stalingrad, made statues of himself. He's saying that he is the legitimate successor of Lenin, and he turned things into a cult of personality. And, similar to, like, if any of y'all have ever read 1984, that, Big Brother is watching you. This is based on the Stalinist cult of personality. Now, also, that Stalin eliminated political opponents, resulting in around 1 million deaths. Now, total deaths from Stalin, one way or another, is going to be around 20 million. Okay, but one thing that he did during the Great Purge of 1936 to 38, Stalin eliminated anyone that he even suspected of being against him. Okay, so those are some things about Stalinism. Now, with Gorbachev, you're looking at glasnost and perestroika. Okay, so I think I'm finished with this Google document now. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, I'm going to go ahead and share this with y'all, and make sure that y'all got, y'all got access to this. So let's see here. We'll go ahead and, get this ready to share with y'all. And I'm going to put this in the, in the thing here. So Russian Revolution. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take a look here. The Russian Revolution, and I'm going to share that in the in the Crowdcast and in the and in the YouTube chat. Oh gosh, I want barbecue as well. Okay, I tell you what, wouldn't that be something if they said, like, hey, the DBQ has been replaced by the BBQ? Okay, that would really be great, wouldn't it? So as far as this goes, ladies and gentlemen, we've got that. We've got now glasnost and perestroika. Okay, so Gorbachev has taken over in the 1980s when it's becoming clear that the Soviet Union is failing. And Gorbachev, now again, he's not converting to Western liberal democracy, but, oh gosh, I drank that a little bit too soon. Woo, that was hot. All right, so Gorbachev is not converting to liberal democracy, but he thinks that maybe if the Soviet Union has any chance of surviving, we might have to incorporate some elements of liberalism. So glasnost, which means openness, and perestroika, which means restructuring. So stroika, structure, restructuring the government. Now, glasnost, or openness, is basically he was going to allow people to publicly criticize the government. And he believed that by doing that, that they would be able to find out what's wrong. Because if you don't let people criticize the government for like 70 years, then nobody ever knows what the problems are. And so that's a big problem, right? So think about this. Perestroika, structure, the restructuring of the government. Glasnost, check this out. I always say glasnost. Like, if I put a pane of clear glass, you could see through it. So when I think about glasnost, I say glasnost, and I think in terms of, okay, openness, okay, openness. So as far as that goes, that we've got that there. So, ladies and gentlemen, as far as that goes, I think we're pretty good on that. So, going from here, let's go ahead now. Do y'all want to hear? The Reformation rap has been pretty good on the TikToks. I did that to Glorilla and Sexy Red with Martin Luther and Henry VIII. Do y'all want to hear that, or is that something y'all are just like, okay, we can hear it on the TikToks or something like that? Let me see if I can actually find it. Where is that? Let's see. So I must have had it the other day because let's see. Let's see. I actually don't see it. But you know what? I can probably wrap it a cappella. Is that okay with y'all? Is that okay? I'll just do it a cappella because I can't find the beat. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, and this is on my TikTok at Tom Richey. So here. Oh, wow. Dr. James Wilson's not actually a teacher. That's really funny. Okay, so Dr. James Wilson, it's a TV character or something like that. Well, there we go. There we go. Joke's on me. All right. Martin Luther. Christians go to heaven based on faith alone. No indulgences. I got grace at home. Scripture's all I got. Tradition's dead and gone. 95 complaints. I'ma make them known. I got the hammer, nails, door, theses, hammer, nails, door, theses, hammer, nails, door, theses, hammer, nails, door, theses. Now, again, this is on TikTok with the beat and all of that kind of stuff. Okay, Henry VIII, ladies and gentlemen, which one thing we want to understand is Martin Luther's verse focuses on the theological elements. Okay, Martin Luther's verse focuses on the theological elements. And then, Lauren, you need to chill out. I tell you what, I'm about to kick this Lauren A out of the chat. Like, I have had enough. So I'm sure, so ladies and gentlemen, I got to figure out if somebody can police the chat. We'll figure that out. But gosh, it's like, what a downer. So as far as that goes, ladies and gentlemen, let me go ahead and think about, Martin Luther. We've got the theological motives, right? The theological motives. And then Henry VIII, it's more focused on political power and that sort of thing. Okay, so that's what we'll see there is Martin Luther's theological motives versus Henry VIII, and his focus on political power. So let me go ahead and again, I'm a cappella in this because. And I did share that Russian Revolution thing with y'all. All right, so here's Henry's verse. Henryvii, crowned my third wife, Jane. Then she had a boy and died. Church of England, yeah, I'm ruling it supreme. Catherine Howard cheated on me and I sank that axe deep. Cash in, wives out. I'm a G selling land that belonged to the monasteries. Renounce the Pope. I ain't twerking to his beat. Parliament's got my back. Act of supremacy. Divorce beheaded, died. Divorce behead, survived. Marry me and you might not make it out alive. 6 wives and I divorce them by the hour. I got wives, cash, church, power. Wives, cash, church, power. Wives, cash, church, power. 6 wives and I divorce them by the hour. I got wives, cash, church, power. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So as far as that goes, we finished that up. Okay, so the Napoleonic Wars. Okay, so as far as that, ladies and gentlemen, one thing we want to be aware of is, I love the Napoleonic Wars, but at the same time, we do have to think about like the wars. The details about the wars are not really going to be on the exam. Now, a few things we want to know about Napoleon, okay? Basically, remember the Napoleonic Code. We've got, the Concordat of 1801, where Napoleon brings back the Catholic Church, into Europe, into France, and makes it a legal religion again. Now, one thing will note is he doesn't make Catholicism the state religion. He names it the majority religion. So Napoleon allows Protestantism and other faiths. He didn't allow people to promote atheism, but other than that, as long as you've got a religious faith, then that's going to be fine. Okay, so a religious faith, that's going to be fine. So with that, now also we want to note how Napoleon destabilized Europe. Okay, so we've got about 25 years of warfare between the French Revolution and the Napoleonic Wars. Now, I think I did see in the course and exam description that Napoleon's, invasion of Spain. Okay, so if we look at Goya, the 3rd of May. Okay, so Goya, the 3rd of May, 1808. Okay, so we're going to take a little look at this painting, and we see, something that, as far as, romantic nationalism. Okay, so Napoleon's campaigns in Spain and in other parts of Europe, now, while they also represented French nationalism, it also released other waves of nationalism in these places. Okay, so Goya is painting the 3rd of May, 1808, which today, Star Wars Day, may the 4th be with you. Now, hopefully tomorrow, when you go into the AP exam, you're not thinking like, may the 3rd be with me. Now, Lin is going to be on this side of the firing squad. Okay, Lin has been over here. I hope that this is you and that's your exam. I certainly hope that this isn't you and that's your exam. Okay, but some of you, people got to be on both sides of the firing line. But I tell you what, my friend Lin's going to be on this side of the firing line. A lot of y'all too. Okay, those of y'all who were asking me the night before the exam how to write a DBQ, this is probably you. Okay, like if you're like, hey, I don't even know how to write a DBQ in the exams tomorrow. Oh gosh, I mean, this is like y'all have had a whole year to figure out how to write a DBQ. So that is the 3rd of May, 1808. Now remember, at 9:30, I'm going to be leading that premium session, The Art of Euro. Now, another thing that I didn't mention, I probably mentioned last night, but if one person in your friendship group or your class purchases a ticket, I'm going to have a co-stream link where your classmates, you can share it with your classmates, just don't publish it anywhere on, public online. But as far as that goes, I'm going to have a YouTube co-stream link where your classmates can watch it as well. But we're going to be doing a full art review at 9:30, crowdcast.io/Tom Richey, okay, for that petty capitalism. Now, so note that Napoleon, and also remember that the Congress of Vienna is mobilizing because of Napoleon. Now, like I said, I've been very busy reviewing and tutoring and all of that kind of stuff, all that kind of stuff there. But as far as that goes, yeah, thank you. I tell you what, I like my friend John Paper over here. So as far as that goes, there we go. So going from there, ladies and gentlemen, Aileen is here. I tell you what, so good to see you over here, Aileen. So with that, the Napoleon rap, I've been really busy today. I haven't gotten up on the TikToks, but if y'all want to hear it, I'm going to do it. Okay, so since we've just been talking about Napoleon, this would be a great time to do that rap. And again, I'm planning on having this on the TikToks later tonight. Okay, so after the art review, I'm going to get to I'm going to get on there, and we're going to get it probably late night upload on the TikToks or early morning tomorrow. But this needs to be on the TikToks before the thing. So I go into most of like the new stuff there. Addison, you're going to be on the right, so you're going to be Napoleonic soldiers firing and soaking the streets with the exam's blood. I've got faith in you, my friend. I've got faith in you. All right, so as far as that goes, ladies and gentlemen, let's get this started, okay? Born in Corsica, called me Bonaparte, fool. Military coup, made me first consul. Enlightened ruler, I performed the French schools. The emperor, using Europe for my footstool. I might lose a battle, but I never lose a minute. If there's war in Europe, bet I'm going to be up in it. Absolute rule, no, I don't take orders from a senate. Greatest man in Europe, I'm a legend, I admit it. Great shot for the royalists without hesitation. Neoclassicism, Rome, it's my greatest inspiration. Dead Russians, dead Brits, that's my favorite combination. Signed a concordat, gave religious toleration. Napoleonic code, one set of laws for the nation. Now I got to figure out what to do about the Haitians. Guerrilla fighters in Spain, about time to make them pay. Soak the streets with their blood on the 3rd day of May. My order's crystal clear, show no mercy. Slay. Continental system, cut the British off from trade. Russia disregarded, I decided to invade. Turns out that's the worst mistake I think I ever made. Exile me to Elba, where they thought that I would say. I escaped, crashed out for another 100 days. Back in France again, gathered with my crew. As it turns out, I guess I should have thought it through. They beat me at Waterloo. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that's something that's going to be helpful. And again, I'm going to put that, later tonight, early tomorrow morning at the very, at the very latest. I'm going to put that up there, and that's got most of the stuff you would need to know about Napoleon for the exam. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So let's see what we're going to, overture. All right, ladies and gentlemen. All right, I tell you what, Lin only needs 5 points. Okay, so y'all are going to get in there. So as far as that goes, all right. Daniela is working on her magic chill. I tell you what, we sure could use some of that, right? So as far as that goes, can you explain? Let's see. We'll go. Do you think they? Okay. So according Mara, thank you for your support, Mara. I've been seeing you supporting me lately, and I really appreciate that. Is that basically all of the units will be on the exam, okay? And this isn't like a push where some are, more than others. What we see is all 9 of the units are allegedly about the same. Now, Unit 9, I think there's going to be a big like Cold War focus, Marshall Plan, all of that kind of stuff. So when we talk about Unit 9, I think, my expectation would be post 1989, maybe like 2 or 3 questions tops out of 55. So, as far as that goes, I don't anticipate a lot there. Also, it's very unlikely that you're ever going to see a writing prompt that's going to begin after 1989 or after 2001. So the main thing about Unit 9, I think about the Cold War, rebuilding Europe, the relationship with the United States. That's actually come up. So those of you who've taken a push before, that's something that the relationship with the United States, that's a big thing with the United States suddenly going into after World War II, a period of permanent engagement with Europe, with the containment doctrine and NATO and all of that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for the new Instagram followers. We've got Happy as Garb, Lily Walsh, 604, Zoe Marks, Sam can't make a jam. Poor Sam. We've got Rafi Cormier, 913.coy, Ali Rules, Hunters on Forge, Freya 044, what a great name, and DMV made Ray. We love Harambe, ladies and gentlemen. R.I.P. Harambe. And I tell you, I just get a little bit triggered by that whole like gorilla versus 100 people. It's like the gorillas are not against us. Thank you, Jana. Okay, and Madeline 710. So, ladies and gentlemen, as far as that goes, that we got there now. Can I explain how to phrase a thesis for a change in continuity LEQ? Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'll just tell y'all one more time. A lot of times y'all are wanting like quick hacks for this stuff, and just understand that I spent basically, if you're wanting that, I spent an hour and a half yesterday, and Lin will tell you. Lin will tell you it was a very helpful DBQ. Okay, I'm not against the gorillas. R.I.P. Hurrah. Actually, you know what? I've actually recorded a little TikTok where I'll explain how to survive that whole thing. But ladies and gentlemen, with that, I've still got beef with you, Lauren. Okay, but none of us have beef with Lin. All right. So with that, the Crowdcast. If you subscribe to the art review tonight, that's going to start at 9:30. Crowdcast.io/Tom Richey. Going to spend about 90 minutes talking about all the art movements, and then you also will get access to yesterday's LEQ workshop, which focused exclusively on the continuity and change facing LEQs. Okay, so that's I'm not trying to show you a quick hack. We did a big session and a multiple choice strategy session. So as that goes, FR, stop beefing, FR. I tell you what, FR. So with that, what were the revolutions of 1848? I tell you what, I have got, just to kind of note here, the revolutions of 1848. This is something that is, basically happening after, it's kind of the end of the age of Metternich. Okay, that in 1815 you've got the Congress of Vienna. And then from there, the age of Metternich, where you've got this conservative order in Europe that is on stability within states, stability between states. Okay, and Europe. Now you've got the Greek, independence, the French Revolution of 1830. Every once in a while, something kind of happens, but there's not like a big war or anything like that, ladies and gentlemen. So the age of Metternich is about 1815 to 1848. Okay, so we want to note that and what's going on there. By the way, thank you. Millen Akavin and Hannah Mercedes for the recent Instagram followers. So the revolutions of 1848, it's a bunch of revolutions that are happening around the same time across most of Europe, except not in Russia, not in Britain, okay? And liberals, nationalists, socialists, they've all had enough. Now, the thing about the revolutions of 1848, while they temporarily shook up Europe quite a bit, for the most part, they weren't successful. Okay, that basically the effort to unify Germany based on the Frankfurt Parliament's constitution, a failure. Okay, and again, it kind of closes the book on that age of Metternich. So going from there, we want to note here, I've got that Metternich rap. Y'all, let's just remember Clemens von Metternich. This is also on YouTube and on my SoundCloud if y'all want something. There was a guy that was taking a test in grad school that a few years back told me that he had the Metternich rap going through his head during a grad school test. I couldn't believe it. All right, so Metternich, ladies and gentlemen. What up, Europeans? It's the ladies' pick. Austrian Prince Clemens von Metternich, aristocracy savior. I'm the man of the hour. Gonna carefully restore Europe's balance of power. Eating nationalists for breakfast, liberals for my dinner. Gotta be conservative if you want to be a winner. I'm the coach man of Europe, so you better hold your horses because all the great powers are about to join forces. Napoleon thought he was too big for Elba. So we put him on a ship straight to St. Helena, threatened European peace, so we set him adrift, shake the French Revolution off like Taylor Swift. Come on, Talleyrand, take a seat at the table because Europe needs a France that is strong and stable. There's no need to punish France. I just want to keep order and restore the old 1791 borders. The liberals have ideas that they want to express, but I shut their mouths up when I censored the press. Stability between and within European states, it's the goal of this order that I'm trying to create. So join me in Vienna where a Congress is in session. Together we will stop the revolution from progressing. This conservative order, no, it ain't going to fall because I build coalitions like Trump builds walls. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, 100 Years' War, that's going to be before the exam there. Now, with that, shout out to Miss Earp. All right, so let's give a shout out to Miss Earp, ladies and gentlemen. And again, we will be wrapping, we will be wrapping up WRAPPING. We're going to be wrapping this up very soon because I've got to get on to the art review. But understand that I'm going to be broadcasting. I'm going to be broadcasting at 9 a.m. We're going to be going from about 9 a.m. to 11:30. It's going to be about a 2.5-hour broadcast. And as far as that goes, that's going to be, hey, y'all don't bully her in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. Op is just, that's just one of those things that, op's got to be a little bit fun. Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, y'all, let's remember this is something that, is, y'all, let's be kind in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't mean to start, a bullying spree. We don't support cyberbullying here. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, oh my goodness, if I stop reviewing, I'm going to go bald. Okay. So as far as that goes, I tell you what, Tyler, a loyal friend there. All right. Yes. John Paper, our friend John Paper. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's see what our best question is right now. When we're thinking about, as far as that goes, let me think about like, when we think about somebody's asking about anti-Semitism, and I don't know if I can do the whole thing justice on the top of my head, but let's go ahead and talk about, just like anti-Semitism and what's going on with European Jews in this course. Okay. So I'm going to give you a quick walkthrough as we kind of wrap this session up. And of course, we're going to be, broadcasting at 9 a.m. tomorrow, both on Crowdcast and on my YouTube channel, just like we've got here. Okay. So, when we're looking at anti-Semitism, we've got to think about in medieval Europe, Jews often, lived among Christians in Europe. Now they would be in kind of their own part of town. They would wear distinctive clothing. Typically, when you look at medieval art, you can see that the Jews have on these hats that kind of mark them as being Jewish. Now in Spain, for example, you had, Christians, Jews, Muslims all living there. But when Ferdinand and Isabella completed the Reconquista. Now, one thing I'm going to note here is religious toleration in the Reformation. I've got a handout that I'm going to go ahead and share with y'all so that y'all can see this. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure to put this in the chats. This religious toleration, the Reformation, it's just a little one-page handout that I made for y'all. So let's go ahead and put that into the map. So that we're going to go and put that out there. And Ferdinand and Isabella expel the Jews and the Muslims from Spain, and they say that Catholicism is going to be the only religion of Spain. Ferdinand and Isabella are called the Catholic monarchs, okay? So this is my newest handout. If you're looking at kind of reviewing the Reformation tonight, you can search for religious toleration in the Reformation era, Richey, and this will come up. Or you can just look at the link that I circulated just a little bit in the chat. So Ferdinand and Isabella, the Jews who converted to Christianity were conversos. Now, the Spanish Inquisition was originally created. Granted, no one expected it, did they? But the Spanish Inquisition was created to make sure that these Muslims and Jews who had converted to Christianity were not going back to their old faiths. Now, the Inquisition will then expand to include Protestantism and other heresies. Remember, Philip II was, a very staunch Catholic and a very intolerant monarch who not only in Spain enforced Catholicism, but his Catholic rigidity in the Netherlands cost Spain the control of the Netherlands with the Dutch revolt. Now, also remember that Henry certainly isn't tolerant over there in England, but we see Catholic uniformity and Protestant uniformity. Now, the way that I've got this organized, let's think about if you've got an LEQ or something like that, okay? That Henry and Philip, like France and Spain, these are examples of the new monarchs, okay? So the new monarchs who are basically centralizing administration and are also making sure, so they're centralizing administration and they're also, promoting religious uniformity. So, Spain, you got to be my Catholic religion. England, you got to be, whether it's Henry or Bloody Mary or Elizabeth, these kinds of things here. So, and then I go into the French Wars of Religion, local rule in the Holy Roman Empire. I think this will be really helpful for you. But then again, POV me, it may be the most unhelpful thing ever. I don't know. So as far as that could just get, I know it's helpful, ladies and gentlemen. This will help you. All of this stuff's going to be relevant to the exam, unlike the 100. Yeah, stay away from the 100 Years' War. You don't really need to know about that for this exam, which typically picks up around 1450. So as far as that goes, Ferdinand and Isabella expel the Jews from Spain. And so we see this kind of anti-Semitism. Now, Martin Luther. Now, one thing when we think about anti-Semitism and how dangerous this way of thinking is, okay, is when we're considering this, Martin Luther, he believed that the only reason that the Jews didn't convert to Christianity was because of the corruption of the Catholic Church. Now, Luther thinks that with the Reformation, of course, the Jews are going to convert. They don't. And so Luther starts, later in life. I don't know what happened to Luther, but he starts writing about how the Jewish churches need to be, their synagogues, the Jewish synagogues need to be destroyed and burned down. That the Jews need to be killed. It was just really, even going back to the Middle Ages, if we wanted to contextualize that when the Black Death was happening, a lot of people, they didn't know it came, fleas, rats, all that. They're trying to figure out what's going on here. And in some places they say, well, the Jews have poisoned the well, and they would use that as an excuse to, to basically, kill all the Jews in the community. And of course, then it would wipe out all their debts, because typically the Jews were also the community bankers and moneylenders. And so with that, we see in the 19th century that there are efforts to bring the Jewish population, to assimilate the Jewish population into the regular population. That Napoleon, was one of the things Napoleon did was a Jewish emancipation, which basically, said that Jews have to go under the same laws as everyone else. This was supposed to be in the spirit of the French Revolution, but it had other consequences there. Now, Benjamin Disraeli, although Benjamin Disraeli, who was the prime minister of Britain, in the late 19th century, Benjamin Disraeli, was an ethnic Jew. Now, if we think about this, Benjamin Disraeli as an ethnic Jew, what's going on? Okay, we got the, let's see, we're going to see about policing that chat. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what's going on there. So with Benjamin Disraeli, that's a great example of how, although his father converted him to Anglicanism when he was a kid, Benjamin Disraeli was an ethnic Jew who rose to become the prime minister of Britain, which, if you go back to the 1600s or the 1700s, I don't think that they would have been willing to do that. So you see the influence of liberalism when you look at someone like Benjamin Disraeli, who then reaches basically the peak of of politics in Britain. And so now on the other side, though, in France, you've got the Dreyfus Affair, and the Dreyfus Affair is where you've got Dreyfus was a French military officer. He went to, the military academy and all of that. But when it became apparent that somebody had sold some secrets to the Germans, people are like, the Jew did it. Okay. And the Dreyfus Affair just brings out all of this anti-Semitism that had been, hiding in plain sight for a long time. Now, as far as that, as that goes, there was Degas. Let's see. So, let's see. All right. There's something here. Let's see. Edward Degas. Excuse me. All right, so as far as that goes, now we'll be talking about all kinds of art movements, including Impressionism, at the Premium Art Review at 9:30. But, Degas, who was a French Impressionist, people debate whether, you see here, this is portraits at the stock exchange. So these are people that are in money and, stocks and all of that. And there's debate over whether Degas accentuated Jewish features at the exchange and whether he meant to be anti-Semitic. Now, Degas was a prominent anti-Dreyfusard, someone who was against Dreyfus and believed he was guilty. Now, in the wake of that, we've got, Theodor Herzl. Okay, when we think about Theodor Herzl, who was a Jewish, man in Europe, of Austro-Hungarian. So I tell you, that is a classic beard, huh? So he could have been like a Civil War general or something like that. But Herzl is considered the father of Zionism. So around the same time as the Dreyfus Affair, Herzl comes to the conclusion that the program to assimilate Jews in Europe, although in the 19th century, Jews did have a great deal of success in getting into the mainstream culture. But Herzl came to the conclusion that Jews are never going to be accepted as Hebrew, or not, but Jews are never going to be accepted in European society, not fully. And we also want to note that that Zionism is a form of nationalism. Okay, Zionism is a form of nationalism. So when you start to see French nationalism, German nationalism, Italian nationalism, Herzl says, well, what about a Jewish state? And so that's where we see during the 20th century that, European Jews, largely, between leaving for Israel, leaving for the United States, and the Holocaust, which, Hitler, when he takes over in Germany, he does, Nazism, okay, and fascism. It's basically a very radical nationalism. And Hitler basically, his government says that Jews will no longer be German citizens and that, they cannot marry ethnic Christian Germans, that they are seen to be as, they're seen as being outside of the nation. Okay. So when we look at fascism, Nazism, a very radical form of militaristic nationalism. And so that's where, we see with, as far as anti-Semitism reaches its peak with Hitler, but it didn't come out of nowhere. That most of the things, that Hitler's doing, you see echoes of Ferdinand and Isabella, of Martin Luther, of the Dreyfus Affair. All of this stuff was happening there. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I've got this art review starting in just a few minutes. It's scheduled to start at 9:30. I might start a little bit later, just a few minutes later. I'm going to be there in a few minutes after I get some water and whatnot. So remember, the $15 ticket gets you into the art review. It gets you access to the archived multiple choice strategy and LEQs from yesterday. And you will also get links that you can share with your friends who can watch a YouTube co-stream. Now, remember, I will be back tomorrow for a free public broadcast. That'll be Breakfast with Richey. All right. So as far as that goes, Breakfast with Richey, let's see, yes, no, you're thinking about Adam Smith, okay? Adam Smith and the Enlightenment is the answer to your question. So as far as that goes, I'm going to be back for Breakfast with Richey, ladies and gentlemen. That's going to be at 9 a.m. Eastern, okay? So we're going to be getting together tomorrow morning for Breakfast with Richey. Somebody's asking, is it starting? It's starting tomorrow morning at 9 Eastern. We've got 11 people already waiting. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, just keep that in mind. I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be a long broadcast, so we're going to be getting together in less than 12 hours for a morning of the exam review. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's do our traditional sign off here. All right, so let's go ahead. We like to sign off with a song, ladies and gentlemen. Some of y'all have been reviewing me with me all week. Those of you who just got here, welcome to be here, right? What's the worst that I could say? Things are better if I stay. So long and good night. So long and good night. And if you carry on this way, things are better if I stay. So long and good night. So long and good night. All right. We're going to see everybody tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, including Lauren. We're going to see Mr. Good, maybe. I don't know if he's going to be teaching tomorrow. John, Y-O-U''R-E, okay, is the word you're looking for, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, my goodness. Richie's going to go bald. Y'all might put that on your test tomorrow or something like that. So, ladies and gentlemen, always a pleasure, and I am looking forward. Yep, I hope so too, Adri, on YouTube. Now, remember, ladies and gentlemen, again, just remember that I'm going to be back at 9 a.m. tomorrow. And remember, go to Instagram. If you double tap a picture of Harambe, just like Nile Hodge Twin and Hearts for Rachel, and say Sav Smith. All right. Thank y'all for the recent Instagram follows. And again, the Napoleon rap is coming up on the TikToks. Okay. So if y'all get on the TikToks, I'm going to be doing that very shortly. I'm sometime tonight after the art review, I'm going to get that on the TikToks, and that's going to be worth it as a pre-exam listen, ladies and gentlemen. So with that, on the art review, those of y'all who bought into the art review, I'm probably going to be about 5, 7, 10 minutes, but we're going to start. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so long and good night. Always a pleasure.